I did.
Oh,
And I took it.
congratulations.
Yeah, so no travel.
That would be the best thing.
I think the kids.
We're gonna
will be
wait for
pleased.
Mike. He just went downstairs. He'll be right back. Okay. Good morning. This is the February 10th meeting for the Financial and Advisory Committee. Attending are Wayne Snow, Robin Olson, welcome a new member, Eric Burden, Ed Doby, and Mike Farrell, the Town Administrator. The purpose for this meeting this morning is for departmental budget reviews. So by saying that, we should start. One thing I would ask the departments to do is to be brief. We have not had an opportunity to pre-read the budgets, so if you can just point out the salient points that you want to make, that would be good for us. And if we have any specific questions, we can always get back to you. So with that, let's start. There were three people here first.
I'd like to just give an intro.
Certainly.
Okay. Well, as usual, this budget at this stage of the game is still a work in progress. We have all our department budgets, but some of the very important expenditures and revenues are still unknown at this time. We do have, what I could do is at least go over the revenues. That's where I always start with the budget. You figure out what your revenues are. If you go to the number 3 tab, and it's the second page under the 3 tab, and you'll see, starting from the top of the page, our levy limit, which is basically Prop 2.5. We can not raise more than 2.5% of the previous year's levy limit. That's included with the new growth. Actually, the new growth, it's 2.5% plus any new growth. If you remember last year at the fall town meeting, we made a major adjustment because of unanticipated new growth in the spring. Once again, we're starting this year not expecting any additional new growth. So we're coming in at $160,000. Even that, I'm told by our assessor, might be a stretch. So that might need to be adjusted downward, but we're starting at 160. So we have $608,317 in available revenue through taxation. If you go down to the next section with the state revenue, and I included in the front of your binder a spreadsheet explaining the preliminary cherry sheet. The Chapter 70 money, this is compared to last year, went up by $25,000. But as the state always does, when they giveth, they also taketh away. And you can see the veterans' benefits are down by $8,000. But we did get a healthy increase in the local government by another $25,000. So we're looking at an increase in state revenues, net increase by $61,000. Then we go to the local receipts, and local receipts, we use the actuals from the previous year. And if we raise it at all, the DOR will only let us bump it up by about 10%, but we have to be able to have a good reason to bump that up. So we, as you can see over the years, the local revenues maintain pretty flat, with the exception this year of the motor vehicle excise. That has been at 1.4 million for the last 2 years. Last year it came in at 1.4. We anticipate we've got about half the revenue in this year, and it's on target to come in at 1.4. So I feel confident that that's a good number, and it's increasing the revenue by $200,000. What we're looking at for total revenue is a estimated increase of $821,000. Any questions on the revenue side there?
I had one question on the water department increase. I'm kind of new. I don't know what that increase is related to. You go from 271 to 550.
That's a good catch, Eric. They're going out to bond, and that's increased debt service that they'll be looking at this year. So it's an expense on increase in expense, but the way the water department budget is, they have to provide us, because it's a enterprise fund, we pay their bills. So last year they gave us $271,000. Well, we deducted $271,000. That covers their benefits, health insurance, things like that. But it also includes debt service.
That's money that's going to come from the water department through the water rates, not through the tax dollars.
Same thing happens with the light department, but they're not included in the budget. We just include their revenue. You'll see that'll come up later.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions on revenue? Just to highlight some of the other issues, all the wages are, we had three union contracts settled this year for FY19. Total wages for union and non-union are up 2.98%, almost 3%. That includes a cost of living adjustment for the non-union at 2%, and some of the units, the police units, that we have a patrolman's unit and a superior officers unit. They bargained a 2% increase, and then the other unit, the third unit, we call a mixed unit because it includes highway, dispatch, and one town hall clerical position. Their contract came out to 4.5%. The selectmen agreed to adjust their salaries over the next 3 years to hopefully bring them up to closer to market rates. Any question on wages? The debt service is, I was changing it as of Thursday afternoon. It is really up in the air. Believe it or not, we're still waiting to close out the Pembroke project. It hasn't gone through the state's final audit. We did borrow $26 million several years ago. We knew that wouldn't be exactly enough. So we always anticipated doing it, what we just referred to as a cleanup bond. And we can't do the cleanup bond until the project has been closed out. We thought we were going to have it this fiscal year. Didn't happen. Now it's my latest information tells me that it's not going to close until sometime this summer. So we'll be well into FY19. But I don't have, and what makes it tricky is the SBA, the School Business Office with the state, is holding $500,000 of our money. When they paid us for ongoing expenses, they always withheld a certain amount. And so we're going to use that to buy down the bond. But until we know what the total cost of the cleanup is, minus the money they're holding, we can't. We don't have a accurate idea of how much new debt we're going to need. We know, for the next 20 years what our old debt is, but it makes it tricky. So debt service is in flux right now, and of course, any questions on the debt service before I move on? Insurance is always a big question mark. Primarily health insurance. That's one of our largest expenditures next to debt service and payroll. But this year the Board of Selectmen engaged a health insurance consultant, and we're fairly confident that we're going to see some favorable rates this year. Last year, health insurance went up 4%. Prior to that, it was 8 and double digits. So and it's not a foregone conclusion that we're staying with our previous provider, Maya. But they came out and said their rates are going to be somewhere between 0% increase and 11% increase, with the average being 4.5% increase. So some people are going to see a 0% increase. We're negotiating with them through our new consultant to be one of those. But if we don't get a favorable rate increase, then we'll be going out to bid. We did that last year, and it really helped Maya sharpen their pencil, and that was, I think, one of the main reasons why we only saw a 4% increase, because we are profitable for them. They like to see 85 cents out of every dollar spent, and that's right where we are over the last 2 years. So they would prefer not to lose us.
Mike, on the expense side, on page 3 or 4, It says the actual increase for health insurance is 6.6.
Yes, Ed, I had
Is that a
put,
plug?
I had to put a placeholder number.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that's, the numbers haven't caught up with the facts.
that's correct. And likewise, all the other types of insurance, we generally don't get our rate lock until late March. So I did increase them slightly. You can see all of them have been adjusted upwards to a degree. And just for an FYI, later on, when I discuss the administration budget, I'm in negotiations, we're in negotiations with the school. We've talked about this for a number of years, of creating a joint maintenance department. The sticking point in the past was it was their definition of maintenance and my definition of maintenance wasn't the same. And we're now on the same page, where maintenance means fixing stuff, not cleaning stuff. You know, we are satisfied with the level of the way things are being maintained, janitorially speaking. You know, we didn't feel we needed to have a full-time, you know, person doing that in our basically three buildings, the public safety here and the library. We all use the same contract cleaner, and it's a lot less than hiring a full-time janitor with benefits. So we're gonna stay that way, but the new, where we're talking about, we'll have access to they have a full-time electrician and 3 maintenance workers plus their supervisor. And the big benefit to both of us, if we join into that, we're gonna hire a full-time HVAC person, which is in this building critical. And likewise, for the new school, they have a brand-new HVAC system there, and it needs to be maintained. It's a state-of-the-art system, so there's a lot of benefits for both the school and the town in that respect. That being said, I'm sure my colleagues behind me are eager to talk to you and get on with their Saturdays, so.
As we all are.
Can we dial in Sheila?
Yes.
Is there a certain phone I have to use, or do you want me to just use my cell phone?
we
Is that one?
Yeah.
While you're doing that, Robin, I'm just gonna move forward if that's all right.
I have the number here.
So there were 3 people here. You wanna,
Jen volunteered to go first.
you ready?
It's the 914 number.
If you could, welcome this morning. Just give us your name and
Yep,
your,
I'm Jan McGrain, I'm the town clerk.
I didn't anticipate that, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. 18.
18.
18.
All set, Jance, when you are?
Okay, so basically my budget is the same thing. Nothing's changed except my election budget. So anything that's changed in numbers is because we have 3 elections in this fiscal year versus 1 last year.
Okay. And that would be in the 5360?
Purchase
That
service.
would be in anything that's gone up. It's
Okay.
in temporary wages at the top,
Yep.
which is the poll workers. It goes up a little bit on communication.
Hi Sheila, it's Mike
It
Farrell.
goes, you know,
You're on the line now.
Different things go up because of that. There's like postage, extra
Right.
postages, extra people
Jan
from the board of
McGrain, the town clerk,
registrars,
is speaking.
extra like poll workers. So anything that's gone up is
Okay.
due to the extra elections.
Okay.
Is 3 this year?
There's three, there's
Okay.
September, November, and then our town next May.
Do we have any questions?
No questions.
Janice, it's got to be a record. Thank you
Enjoy
very
your
much.
Saturday.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hi, good morning.
good morning. I'm Deborah Rogers from the Georgetown Board of Health,
What tab
the
is
Health
that?
Department.
We're 10.
Number 10?
Thank you, Wayne.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here.
So yeah, my budgets are the same. Nothing has changed. Under the salary, I just left it the same because I didn't do any of the cost of livings or anything like that. I left that same as last year. Everything else has stayed the same except the one thing that was changed was our public health nurse, her contract. She's been with us 6 years. This is her first increase in the 6 years she's been with us. She has requested it was going to go from the $5,000 to $6,140, so it was up $1,040, which equaled out to 4% per year, pretty much about 25%. And nothing else has changed.
Okay, any questions? We can't put you on the hot seat for much on this budget.
No, it's pretty cut and dry on this one.
Wayne?
Well, can't find it, but anyhow. What happened to the, last few
think-
years we talked about, is there something we paid for at the dump every year? Are we still paying
Yeah,
that?
the monitoring from
Yeah,
Mass
okay.
DEP, and they still require us
still
to
want
do
us to
it,
do it,
yeah.
okay.
Actually, they added a couple of other
they-
samples that have to be done, mandatory.
seven.
So at this time,
Justify your life, I know.
I know.
Thank
But,
you.
and the good news is
My
that
number's
number that Hub Testing is charging us for the monitoring hasn't changed in several years. So they haven't increased or anything, so that is a good thing. I know, right? That is a good thing, so, and nothing else has changed.
I'm all set.
What
Thank
was your
you.
name
Oh,
again?
sorry.
Deborah Rogers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, one thing, actually, you can see the cost of the sealer of weights and measures has dropped on the personnel side. We have contracted with the state to provide that service. We no longer have an individual doing it, and we anticipate much better service, first and foremost, but also less expensive, too.
You didn't know that? So that's good. Yeah. So he's no longer gonna be on our budget?
That's correct.
Okay.
He's been off it for a while.
Oh, okay.
Even better.
Yep, so the salary would be different, but yeah.
Yeah.
Everything
Great.
else is the same.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Deborah.
you.
Have enjoy your Saturday.
Oh, thank you.
What tab are we going to now?
It would be Concom,
Do these now.
12.
12? Can use 12.
Good morning.
Morning, sir. Steve Przemski, conservation agent. Just for people that aren't familiar with the department, it's just myself as the agent and my administrative assistant. Budget has not changed, but you will notice that there's a $14,000 increase. That's more reshifting where the money's coming from. The Conservation Commission is one of the few departments that our fees going to a separate account. And over the years, when this budget crunches, part of the salaries are taken out of those accounts. It's not a sustainable practice. And every 5 years, Mike, and after picking away, 5, 10, 15,000 a year, it starts to go down to the point where it's not sustainable. And Mike brings it all back to 100% general fund funded.
I think you warned us about this last year.
Correct. I'm just more explaining for the new folks and
Okay.
people at home. It does appear like if you look at, there's a $14,000 increase. There's no actual increase in salaries or any of the cost of service. It's just kind of where the money's coming from, so it appears different. And so aside from that, there's no changes.
Again, it's pretty straightforward. The only thing I would ask is not that I'm complaining, but you reduced as a percentage, the communication quite a bit. Is there a reason for that? I mean, it's a few
It
$100,
wasn't
but,
It wasn't needed. If we don't
Okay.
spend it, we give it back.
okay,
So don't ask for what you don't need.
okay, well, that's good. Very good practice.
We try.
Any questions?
Not for me.
Steve, thank you very much for coming, I appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
Now, we do not have a fixed schedule this morning, so I think
Alphabetically works great.
Are you towards the top of the alphabet?
assessor,
Oh.
Oh.
assessors.
Let's go reverse then.
ZBA. She's not here.
Well, if you don't mind, we'll go with the assessor.
Well,
We'll-
somebody
we'll-
was here, I think John might have
Who
been
else
there.
was here?
At the rate
I mean,
we're
it's
going,
not
you're
as
all
though
gonna
we're
be-
going very, very slowly.
I think these are all gonna take just a minute.
Section 6.
So I'm Tom
Yep.
Harvey from the assessor's office. And last year's budget was supplemented with an appropriation at the fall town meeting to cover the upgrade of our database software system. So if we take that out of the budget for fiscal 18, we get back to the base budget, and we're proposing the same budget for fiscal 19 as last year's, or this current year's base budget.
So the department total is 179,995. So that includes the personal services part of your budget.
Correct.
Other than that, it's flat.
That's a different number than I have. I don't know why it's a little different, but, and maybe that includes the salary. Is that the one?
That includes
that's
the
fiscal
salary.
19 number?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have that,
So
so.
that's the delta between the two.
Right. So actually, it would be less 20,000
Okay.
dollars.
Yeah, that would be under 5360. Other purchase services?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions? I hear crickets. Pardon me?
Assessor's office.
Assessor?
Yes.
Okay, what I'm looking at on the spreadsheet, you said 179?
Yeah, 179,995, but we're taking out item 5360 or budget code 5360 of $20,600 from what I can understand.
Back to
That's going to,
600.
yeah, right.
So it'll actually be less.
Should be
Okay.
20, it should be 20,000 less than.
So 159,995 thereabouts.
So line 5360 will go from this year's 20,600, it will go back down to 600.
Okay.
Okay, okay, good, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. By the way, that's Sheila Ruth. She is in Atlanta.
Atlanta, yeah, beautiful Atlanta. Not really today, it's raining, but
Well, it is. It's not bad here either, but okay,
it's
Tom.
warm now. It's not cold.
Okay, that's
Yay.
enough of that. That's
Thank,
enough of
thank
that.
you for
We're
the
rolling, Sheila.
Tom, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming in today.
I would like to add that I'm here without the benefit of having the budget being sanctioned by the board. We were supposed to finalize it on Monday, but due to illness, we had to defer it, so.
Okay.
I might ask to come back if they want to do something different.
That's
They'll
not a
never-
problem. Just
they'll
let
never
us
know.
know.
They'll never know.
Thank you. Whoever wants to be next. It-
Hey, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Les Godin, the building inspector. Mm-hmm. How you doing? Like you said, brief and simple. Just an overview of our department. We have 4 employees. We have a plumbing inspector at 20 hours, wiring inspector at 20 hours. I have an administrative assistant at 24, and myself at 35. So that's all unchanged. So far, the crew is pretty stable. I expect things to be the same next year. The simple part, expense-wise, same expense budget as last year. The individual items vary up and down drastically from item to item, but overall, from year to year, it seems to work out. We also look forward in our budget, and we do things this year if we have money. I mean, we have a lot of changes in training, materials, code changes and stuff. So when a change is coming, we try to spend the money the year before if we can do it the year before. But anyway, so that should balance. We've had a good year for revenue. So far, I printed these out from Geo. For the fiscal year so far, till January 31st, revenue is at $82,832. That's pretty consistent with last year. Let me explain that. Last year is 103. What I want to bring up, the selectmen voted the building permit waiver for the water tower. That would have been 25,000. So I'm really pretty much almost dollar for dollar for last year for revenue. And that's been consistent. The year before, FY16 was a big year. It was a little bit more money. That was kind of a bumper year for business and building. Yeah, pretty much that's it. We're consistent with revenue and expenses, and salary is based on what Mike and the selectmen come up with. I guess that's a floating number. We talked last year about some improvements. I'm looking at our permit system. We have a software system. I've been shopping for a different system. The current one may go unsupported, the Geo system. Surrounding towns have, they're starting to go to a system called Permit Link, like West Newbury, Groveland, Merrimack. They're on the same system, so it's good for customers. They know how to use it. There's actually a terminal where they can type in their own permits. Right now, our system, Geo, is unique. There's probably 10 towns in the state that have Geo, but no one around here. And so it's not like Microsoft. It's not a system that you can just use, based on general knowledge.
Proprietary.
Right, exactly. So that would add some consistency, and also information you type in one town gets populated into the other towns. That makes things easy for for contractors, and also the price too. It should be less money. But when contractors come in, I kind of canvass them. I'll ask them if they use the system, trying to get their input. So I've had some good, some bad. The bad comes from people that don't really use computers. So once they learn the system, that would help. But I'm looking into that. I've gone to a few other towns and played with their system, and I've been in touch with the manufacturer.
So where do we, I'm sorry.
No,
Rob.
sorry, go ahead. You go ahead.
So where do we stand on this now?
Well, I'm just shopping.
Okay.
I'm just looking ahead to next year, and that might involve a reduction in our fee that we pay.
Okay, sorry, Rob.
Is it a software as a service
Yeah,
rather
well,
than a proprietary system?
Not really computer literate on that, but it's
So it's the same for all the towns. So it's like if you went and you bought Microsoft or whatever, you buy to use this new program rather than this proprietary system that you have currently.
right. It would be for the surrounding 4 or 5 communities.
Okay.
There's probably a dozen different systems in Massachusetts. I'm trying to find something that's consistent with our area.
Great.
And as time goes on, I'm sure in a few years it'll change again. I'm sure there'll be another. Microsoft will come in and take over.
Some next new shiny software. All right, thank you.
Sheila, that disembodied voice in Atlanta?
Yes, hello.
Any questions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I like to point this out every year. The building department is the only department in the town that
Makes money?
pays its own way. And the fact that we waive the building fees for the water department, that's the selectmen have a policy. Everybody has to still come and ask for permission, but we don't generally charge other town departments fees. The biggest example was the Pembroke project. I mean, we probably would add hundreds of thousands of dollars in fees.
But we would have ended up paying it anyway, one way or the other.
Exactly.
Yes.
All right, just for example, was that FY 2015 or earlier? But
It was even earlier, yeah.
because our total revenue back then was 78,000, and then probably because that permit fee lost. But then in the next year, it went right up to 154. You know what I mean? So the municipal projects, when we don't change the fee, that hurts our. And I want to make sure you know that.
Right, and at some point, we'll reach saturation in terms of new projects going in anyway.
We're getting a lot of new redevelopment, though, a lot of tear downs. We keep thinking we're running out of land, but new buildings keep coming in,
Okay.
and it's reestablishing our infrastructure. And
Well, that's good news.
There's always somebody doing something.
Yeah. So if we have no other questions, enjoy your Saturday.
Good, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Colleen Ranshaw Fiorillo. I'm the Georgetown Council on Aging Director. Also now the Director of the Georgetown Senior Community Center. And that we are actually celebrating a year in our building. Now, this is when we moved in a year ago. It was, and it's been a wonderful year. We've thoroughly enjoyed the new space. Things are working exactly as we had hoped and planned that they would. I brought you, because some of you may have already had, but I brought you our annual report.
Thank you.
And, okay, thank you. And I can take Wayne's over there. Plus our newsletter.
You can keep that. I get
I
that.
know.
I'm a-
I was gonna say. Okay, I'll take it.
Thank you.
Wayne, you probably also.
I don't get that letter.
Here you go.
I'm on the mailing list because I have a few gray hairs.
It's a very good thing. So, again, this has been our first year in the building, so, it's been a year where, we've tracked very carefully what we're spending and still setting some things up and, resolving some things as you would in the first year. And so I really think by next year we'll know, exactly what we need in place. So I did, I've broken down our budget again, and we didn't touch the personal, salaries. I have a full-time outreach worker who works 32 hours and a half-time administrative assistant who works 16 hours, and our van driver who works 2 mornings, and myself at 32 hours. And they are fabulous, and they've undertaken additional responsibilities with the space, and they give much more than we cover. So I appreciate, all the thought that's gone into looking at the salaries this year. So under repairs and maintenance, that is the software maintenance for my senior center, which allows us to compile our statistics. Rentals and leases is just my copier, now that we have a copier in our office. Other property-related services includes the custodian who's planned for the senior center, and that's an agreement, that's part of our long-term agreement with the school. And so I did include an increase there because I was not sure whether or not there would be an increase in the custodial cost. But again, as Mike said, that includes much more than the cleaning. They plow, shovel, they are responsive to any maintenance need in the building as well. So, it's worked very well. The professional and technical, it's money set aside for conferences and programs that I attend. Communication includes our Comcast bill, and that's more than what we'd been paying when we were in the building with Verizon. So, again, we didn't know what that cost was going to be as we moved in, so that's why there's an increase there. It also includes our bulk mail costs, which are a slight increase this month. The cost of stamps for the office, the cell phone that goes out with the van driver in the van, and, as I said, our Comcast, which is our phones and internet. Recreational is basically the cost of our instructors who work as contractors for strength training classes, yoga classes, and Tai Chi. Tai Chi was a new program that we added as we moved into the building. Office supplies is just that. Gas and van maintenance is under vehicular supplies. Food and food service supplies, I've included a slight increase there because we're going through more consumable items now. It's which is fabulous. You have people in the building. We do keep coffee on and snacks available. So we are spending a little bit more. We're doing as you have refreshments with programs and parties. So that's good.
May I ask a question on that one?
Food and food service.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like a pittance. Is that enough?
Again, I'm hoping. I'm tracking. I'm tracking. We've also been able to get donations at times. Which has helped. But yeah, I am trying to make sure that. Yeah. I am trying to track that and watch that because I think that will continue to increase. We had.
Well, the reason I ask that is because
Yeah.
your usage is going up.
I know, it is significantly. Since we moved in, we've had a 50% increase in participation every month. I look at stats every month. Every month it's been 50%. At first I thought, okay, this is good. The first couple of months, it'll go down. December was 68%. So, you know, it's working, you're right. So I also included, under other supplies, an increase there, you know, because, you know, that's the consumables, you know, related to programs. So I'm hoping. Travel and mileage is just, you know, some staff travel, I left that flat. Again, equipment, dues and membership, that's, you know, Mass Council on Aging, the Northern Essex Elder Transport, you know, those, you know, professional alliances. And that was it, you know, so it's, you know, the increases really were, you know, that I knew that I was looking at were really the custodial cost, the, you know, the Comcast, you know, some increases in the supplies.
And if anything, I think that's,
That
you
we
could
should-
be more.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that, you know, we've gone already through, Shield, do you have something to say? No? I think that,
Ed?
yes, she did.
Hi, good morning. I know last year we had mentioned safety and security, you know, in
The security
in
system?
the new building, new facility, and I was just sort of wondering if you could speak about that and what's occurred and what happened as far as, you know, ensuring that all of the, especially with the influx of new people coming in, you know, what's happened as far as ensuring that there's the safety of all of the individuals who are coming into the new building. If you could kind of, you know, speak to that and maybe the financial aspect of that, you know, what's happened with that.
Well, we have the, I'm not, you know, and you can you know, ask more as we go, as I explain further. We keep connecting doors with the schools are locked at all times so that, you know, school department members can come through the doors. Nobody goes through the other doors into the school unless they're with my outreach worker or I, who have a key to unlock those doors. So people continue to come in through our front door. They continue to sign in at our reception area. We've been very fortunate to gather a number of very solid volunteers who give us, you know, commit to amount of time so that they can man the desk, so that if Kirsten and I are doing program or working in another part of the building, somebody's always at the desk and watching to see who's coming in, noting where they're going, welcoming them, you know, bringing them to where they need to be. If we're in the other building, the other portion of the school building, we have badges that we wear. We have just installed 3 emergency buttons that, you know, that are available, you know, to the staff, that if we needed to call 911, we did get a very good price through LW Bills locally to do that. The school facility department, again, has been working with us regarding additional lighting in the parking lot. There are some cameras at the back that they're still looking, and at the front that they're still tweaking to put in place. We just did an active shooter training with the police department, which was very helpful and fabulous. So, you know, the people who were, you know, what do I want to say? So, no people as they, you know, participants are coming in, being welcomed. We know where they are in the building, you know, so that they all leave the same way. So the building actually, I mean, the sign-in book then gives me that accountability sheet too, if we needed to leave in an emergency. Oh, the police, I did a safety manual again with, you know, wrote out all of our emergency protocols that was shared with the police department. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that it was more of a concern, like, you know, if people are in the senior center, you know, and you know, and God forbid, but if, you know, I mean, things happen, and so if they suffered some sort of medical emergency, there was a concern that they could be in the building, and there was a part-time, you know, with part-time employees, they may be there, and no one would know that they suffered a medical emergency.
No, that would not occur.
Some sort of concern.
No, that would not occur. As I'm saying, as people arrive, the accountability book lets me know where they are. We have people that are assigned during programs to take attendance, and then when they leave, I check them back out again. So there are always staff and volunteers that are in the rooms. We also, as we did the phone system, we have an all page. So that if somebody was in the exercise room and needed me in the office, they hit the all page. I just tested that again the other day.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, no, we've really looked at that safety, you know, it's
Yeah,
very
so
key.
You were able to work that out and work with what
With
you already
nominal
have in
fee,
order to-
yeah, nominal cost.
Which does bring up a
Yeah,
point
oh,
from,
perfect.
sorry.
Perfect. That's wonderful. Oh, thank you. Okay, great.
No elder is ever left behind. Before I leave the building, I walk the building and I check every room.
Which brings up another point. Do you have access to a defibrillator there?
Yes, we do have one in place. I should have said that as well. The
Yeah.
fire department worked with us to put that in place as well. And a first aid kit in 3 different locations.
That's wonderful. I follow what you guys are doing. You're doing a great job. I just was.
Yeah, no, do come to
we
visit.
discussed that last year.
Yeah, do
Yeah.
come to
Oh,
visit.
it's
It's
wonderful.
a great
Thank you.
facility for the
Thank you.
town.
Any other questions?
Nope.
The one thing I would like to say is we've gone through 6 departments already. And as always, the departments are running very, very tight ships. It just seems to be something that you guys do in terms of keeping your costs down.
Thank you.
And it's appreciated, whether it's
Thank
you
you.
or whether it's any of the other departments. I think that year by year, year over year, you do a great job.
Thank you. It's a creative group of people.
And dedicated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Colleen.
Thank you. If you have any questions, and certainly come visit. You know, we're always glad to show the space.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
your Saturday.
Thank you.
Come on down.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
John Cashel, Town Planner. Guess the only thing I can say about the budget is that it's the same as FY 17, 18, and 19 as proposed. And that's for the purchases of services. The personal services, I guess that's still to be decided for this fiscal year coming up.
Okay.
Do you have 13? Is it section 13?
It is.
Okay.
Again, you're doing a wonderful job maintaining. And it amazes me that all of you can do this so well. Because while inflation is low, it does exist. I don't have any questions.
I don't either.
No questions here.
Sheila?
On a historical note, I've been doing this since 1985, and I cannot remember one year of which the planning budget has gone up.
Okay.
Well,
Gone down some years, but it's never increased.
Well, I'm hoping that, things get brighter for the town and we can we can review a lot of these things. I know that we're actively looking at catching up in a number of areas, as revenues permit. Because, as I say, I've been here for a number of years and seeing the budgets every year, and the efforts that are made to keep the budgets within reason are phenomenal.
Yeah.
So,
There's no crazy spending. That's important.
yeah, actually, there's no spending at all. Well, we appreciate it.
We're fiscal watchdogs.
Yes, you are.
Appreciate it.
Well, you came early and you waited and you were gone in 5 minutes.
Yeah, not bad.
All right.
Thank you
so
very much.
Enjoy your Saturdays when you're done.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Sarah Cognata, Library Director at the Georgetown Peabody Library. So my budget's a little different because we need to be certified by the state. And what that means is that if we're not certified, our Georgetown patrons would not be able to use other libraries in the state. They would only be able to use ours, and there's certain other things. So the way the calculations work for that is an average of 2.5% over the past 3 fiscal years. You calculate that out, and the amount needed for certification for FY19 would be $335,545. Because I'm not really sure about my personnel services right now, another thing that's kind of up in the air is my educational and book material supplies, because that needs to be 19% of the operating budget. So that could increase, that could stay the same. I'm not really sure how that's going to look right now.
19, Sarah?
Yes, 19%.
Which was that? Which part of the budget?
5510?
Yeah.
55,
Yes,
way
that's
down.
correct.
Okay, that has to be 19%?
Yes, correct.
Now,
Of the total budget?
Yes.
Okay.
the question I ask, and every year it's a question that we always have to ask you. You're still closed Thursdays?
Yes.
About how much would it cost to open on Thursdays? How much more would that add to the budget?
Probably about maybe 50 to 60,000 more, if anything. If we opened for 7 hours, it might be a little different. If we started with 4 hours, we could try it out. Maybe do a 1 to 5 shift and see how that works, and then be open from 10 to 5 if it's
You
possible.
know, we've been holding you back for a number of years, and I think that I think we should at least consider it.
This is the first year she hasn't asked for it.
Well, that's because of the personnel
Well, I
increases.
think of it as a consideration, knowing that I have 2 children in the middle high school that look to go there after school
Absolutely.
on Thursdays for that window of time. It's always been interesting to me that we're closed on Saturday, or we're open on Saturdays but closed on a Thursday. But I don't know what usage is of the library.
And-
I mean,
and-
after school, it's very busy there.
Well, I'm
so.
just, I think that without making any promises, I think we should at least consider it.
Okay.
Mike, is that all right with you?
Yeah.
Do you want me to send you? Okay. I'll have to go before my board of trustees before I can send something over, so they can approve
Yeah, give
it.
us both options if you would.
Okay.
Because obviously, if we can do something, it's better than nothing.
Okay.
What days do you have longer hours?
Longer hours?
Yeah.
Tuesdays and Fridays.
And
So
they're-
Tuesdays we're open 10 to 8, Fridays we're open 10 to 5. So
Okay.
we do have the morning opportunities on those days, and then Monday and Wednesdays we're open from 2 to 8. So there's 3
From
days.
The day that you're open, that 5 to 8 window in the evening, do you have a large number of people coming to the door then or not?
We have a good amount. I mean, you can tell a lot of people come in before
Yeah,
dinner
after.
and then after dinner.
And that would be more adults.
Yes. And the adults are the more flexible than coming all the time, as regards to children coming in. You know what I'm
I
saying?
would think it would be the opposite, because they can only come in after dinner or just before it on their way home.
They have the ability to get there by themselves without a parent taking.
Right, but I think it's something, on a go-forward basis is,
I guess where I'm going is, could we cut back on one day, specific day, and put more hours on
well,
on the fifth
we
day?
can consider that based on what we receive in terms of what the options are.
Well, and it sounds like Sarah has to discuss it with her trustees
Yes, I
about where
agree.
so I mean, and during the summer, you're open on Saturdays.
Saturdays we're actually closed July and August.
Okay.
So that's kind of our summer hours, but other than that, everything else stays the same. We're open
Everything else
until
stays
8
the
o'clock
same.
at night, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays.
But, speaking for myself, I would like to see the options.
Okay.
Oh, I
Because
I agree.
we've been sitting here for a number of years, pushing you back, and, we should at least consider the option.
Okay. Absolutely.
Is everyone in agreement?
Yes, I agree.
Sheila?
Sure.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Sarah,
Appreciate it.
have a great
You
Saturday.
too.
Yeah.
Have a good weekend.
And thank you for all that you guys do for the community. Appreciate it.
I don't have no heart.
I know you have a heart, but I've always wondered, do you know how many times my daughters went to go to the library on a Thursday and then she's like, oh, it's closed. So I was just I'm glad you asked the question.
Well, every year we get asked, and as Mike said, this year Sarah wasn't going to ask, so I asked.
Is that a nice surprise?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Well, there's only one person here other than Sarah. It's the man in blue hiding in the corner.
Going quickly, huh?
Yes, we are.
I'm running over from the police station.
How many? Is there anybody else coming other than that?
Well, we haven't heard from the ZBA, Parks and Rec.
Neither of them will be here,
Okay.
and fire chief will be here.
We're going to be out of here before lunchtime. Shh. You got to like that.
I didn't arrange for lunch this time anyway, so
You did or you
I
didn't?
did not.
Well, that's good.
We're saving money.
Yeah, and so, but eat the donuts. Donuts and muffins.
Donut and muffin, huh?
So we're not hearing from the ZBA, nor the Parks and Rec, nor the Highway.
That's right. Peter's out of town.
Okay, did everyone get what I sent to you that Peter sent to me?
Yes.
Okay. You received it?
I may not have looked at my email.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I might
I'm here.
have to say the same.
Guilty as charged. Dawn, take him in.
Basically what Peter's doing, his budget is flat as is everyone else, but he had to raise, the light department was paying a lease on a piece of equipment, and their
Oh,
auditor
okay.
last year said, we can't justify this. So the lease payment appears in Peter's budget. It increased it by about $11,000.
Yep. That's correct.
And which line item does that?
I can always send it to you again.
I know exactly. I remember the email now.
Rental and leases, line 5270, went up $10,000.
The other thing I'd like for us to consider getting to the COA is $1,000 for the food and food supplies. Doesn't seem like it's
Yeah,
much.
let's go back to the lease thing, because
Okay,
I'm guilty of that.
then the police chief's here, you're all set.
The lease on that piece of machinery was created by the light department. That machine was used to cut the brush on the side of the road underneath the lines.
Got it.
And it can also cut this brush on the other side of the road, which the lines aren't on. So I worked a deal with Peter 10 years ago. I said, okay, you get this machine, I'll pay the lease, and you mow both sides of the road, and life will be good. Well, the auditor did catch it a few years later and said, you can't do that. Because-
Okay.
I said, oh, so, okay. I can pay an invoice for it, though. If they give me an invoice for work done with the machine,
Right.
I can pay you. And he kind of like flaunted a little bit, but I said, that's what I'll do. So I told Peter, figure out a lease, for our agreement, so much per hour for this machine to go do the work, and not to exceed $10,000, and invoice me and I'll pay you. Which departments do bill other departments. Well, that satisfied people for a while, but evidently the auditor has a hard job finding something to complain about when he does the audit, so he can go back. He must have run short of things and back on the lease again. So, does Peter had any conversation?
Fred.
Oh,
Okay.
when Peter comes
So,
in, we gotta ask Peter if he's had any conversation with us.
Well, he won't be in
Yeah.
today.
No, he won't, but he will be.
Okay.
Because
How long does the lease go
Okay,
for?
last year it was a
well,
10-year.
yeah, now I remember.
The
you were
ironic
on
part
town for
about it is,
that,
in all honesty,
everybody's,
the light department
Chevrolet,
could lease that
Elevate.
machine and take ownership
I'll
of
talk
the
to
machine.
the
Perfectly legal.
committee.
They can't
I don't
stop
think
that.
we're gonna be.
I just
here
didn't
by
want to have the
11:30.
ownership of the machine because I didn't have an
Going
operator for
so
the machine. Peter had an operator.
fast.
So I'll lease the damn thing, you operate it.
But we're stuck with it this
Yeah.
year, no matter what. That's the
That's the
bottom line.
problem. And I
So we're
think,
stuck with it for 1
That
year.
Yeah,
would be a good idea.
and that's it.
and Peter needs to,
And in terms of the food supplies, I'd like to raise it by $1,000.
This is for the
COA?
senior
Yeah,
center?
I'd like to raise that by $1,000.
and this is,
I agree.
yeah.
I mean,
I
if
mean,
it- if
that's what the suggestion is. We can't do it, but I'd like to suggest it.
If the participation is growing, sure.
It's the,
Yeah.
it's, wow.
Well, the concern that I have is I don't want
Okay.
people paying for their own, paying for it by themselves.
Right. Well, it's interesting. I feel like it's something for, as a younger community member, and I use that loosely, I think it's interesting that they don't promote that for all the things you see on the Georgetown Mass Parents or Georgetown Mass pages on Facebook, maybe to do more to promote that so people understand what the money's going to support those groups or that group, that important population in our community.
Well, everybody's running everything on a shoestring.
I know.
$1,000 here and $1,000 here is not. We can find it. Mike can find it.
Mike can
This
find
is- This is
$1,000.
basically for their supplies for,
Food, yeah.
I never
coffee
see
and
them
things
having
like
the
that.
girls
And
go
I will
volunteer
tell you
over
that
there
she
after
probably gets
school
a
for
lot of
couple hours.
donations
Because
from
they want to
places.
do something like that. Why
Right,
not
but
do
it's
it in
nice to
our
be able
But
to
it's
have.
nice to have the money.
Because I don't want her in a
Something
position.
is always coming up.
Right, I don't want her in a position where she's
almost
gonna have to reach
14,
into her own pocket.
11
I
and
don't want that
7.
either.
So,
You know, they're gonna.
But I
they
think
have
the
to have
older one
napkins,
coming from
plates,
middle
and
high
something
school.
to eat off of.
Yeah. And I know it appears that the ghosts of Christmas past visited me, but
I love it, Ed. It's a new look on you.
oh humbug.
Are we doing police next?
Yep, whenever you're ready.
Chief Cudmore.
I thought it'd be like 1 o'clock. I was gonna study and tune up my
I like it.
presentation.
I like your case.
Well, I didn't know if there were new members. I bring things because some questions come up that are, you know.
This is Eric. He is a new member.
Eric, nice to meet
And
you.
Sheila's on
I'm
the
Cudmore,
phone.
the chief.
Nice to meet you too.
Sheila's joining us from Atlanta.
Hi, Sheila.
Hi, Chief.
No, this is Don. He's the
Depend-
highway guy.
So, let me see.
They look alike.
I have my annual handout for you for just kind of the executive summary for the year so that you can put it in your binder as three-hole punch so you don't lose it.
Whoa.
Prepared for us. Thank you.
It's a description of the department as a whole. And
Thank you.
What do you have, 3 members that aren't here?
Yeah, if you could just leave us
Want
them,
to put them right here?
please.
Thank you. So, your meeting, I can go through this in 5 minutes and just hit some of the majors, or you can ask questions?
We've
or-
we've got the time.
Well, I just, I don't want to be repetitive, but if that's what you'd like to do, and then we can do
It-
the numbers,
It's
or
up
how
to
do you
the
want to
other
do it?
members. I think this is worthwhile because this is one of the biggest budgets
Well,
we have.
And we are also, so if other people. That
Well,
may-
we're not keeping anybody waiting.
We're not. No, I'm talking about on the screen, the people, if anyone happened to watch
Yeah.
this or the recording, I think it's important to hear all the good things, that, the things that we see happening.
So the consensus is? Yes, please.
Okay. Just, for the, like you say, for the public and for the Finance and Advisory Committee, in looking at our budget in total, as far as personnel, nothing has really changed. We still have an FTE of 12 officers. We had added that SRO position back in 2017, FY17, which was an absolute godsend for us. We've been able to accomplish many, many things in the last 2 calendar years because of the SRO's position being a multiple use position, obviously primarily for our district, but increased traffic control as well as safety planning for both the schools and our entire town employee population. So we've hit all of our departments for active shooter, responding to large-scale emergencies and things like that. So that's been a positive. With the communication center, it's still 4 full-time dispatchers and 1 part-time dispatcher. I utilize a complement of reserve officers as backfill, so I don't have to have another set of employees, so to speak. I have part-time employees who are dual-trained, both in communications and as police officers, so that saves us the ability of having another whole complement of staff to train. The other things that the police department are responsible for, we're responsible for animal control, and a number of years back, that was a civilian position for about $35,000 a year. We eliminated that position because it did report to the PD. We trained a full-time officer, gave them a small stipend, and it probably costs us now about $10,000 a year, yet we get full-time coverage as well as someone who is reporting directly to my office and town hall, and they're around 40 hours a week, so we're able to increase that. Animals in our town are a big deal. We respond to a lot of animal calls for service. This community has a larger number of dogs than most, so we want to make sure that that program is stable. When we took over, there were probably 600 unregistered dogs. We've reduced that to under 20 per year now because we keep a very close watch on the licensing. And it's not to generate revenue. I really don't care about the revenue. We care about the safety of our population and that the animals are appropriately vaccinated and that we're able to track who lives where and what's going on. When we have loose animals, we very quickly can determine who and where they are, so long as they're not have been dumped in our community. That happens a lot in this area. People abandon their animals, so we are responsible for that animal if we take possession of it. So we have some expense money to deal with that. Our crossing guard program, I lost a crossing guard this year for retirement, for health issues. And I had 3 crossing guards, 1 for each school, pretty easy to manage. I now have 2, and I've been able to split the hours so that they're doing 2 schools. We move some of the times around. So I'll always hire another crossing guard if I can. It's been posted for over a year, so it's not a very attractive job for somebody. It's a lot of work. It's an hour and a half in the morning and in the afternoon every day for 9 months. So, and it doesn't pay that much, but I have a good committed crew right now, and we have someone who serves on a volunteer basis if there's a vacancy. He does that for the community. I don't have to pay him, so if I have a vacancy, if he's available, he'll do it for us. And that's George Kaminsky, who's a notable in the town of Georgetown. We do have a harbor master program that reports to the police department. We have that because we have 2 great ponds in the community. Again, it's not a funded program. It kind of operates out of my department. I use monies from my cruiser repair line item to keep a boat running. A little challenging last year, but we actually obtained a boat for free through the surplus program. I went down to Wellfleet, Mass, and picked it up myself. And so we have a 17-foot boat that we can use for emergencies and patrol the ponds. We also created a bylaw committee this year because there's been some issues on the ponds, and we want to make sure that we have the appropriate bylaws for the residents to be involved with and actually participate in seeing what they want regulated out there. It's been a busy year this year. Calls for service-wise. We've had an unusual number of property crimes. I'm happy to report that we've solved a majority of them, thanks to the good work of my department. Actually, just yesterday, we seized thousands of dollars of property down in Stoneham, Mass, as a result of a break that occurred in our community, and we got our residents' property back, thanks to the efforts of my people. We also solved about 17 other B&Es in the entire Northeast. But that costs money. I have to have people on duty. They're down in other communities trying to facilitate that. So my budget's taken a hit this year. I'm hopefully going to be able to do what I do every year and hit that target number. But crime is expensive for the victim, but it's also expensive for the police. We have to solve those crimes. It costs overtime, so I'll report that.
We become a target for a particular reason?
No, I think it's an anomaly, Ed. I think that at times we have quiet years, and then coincidentally, Georgetown is a corridor, so to speak,
right, from
495 to 95 to Old Route 1. And it's been identified with our HIDTA patrols, high-intensity drug traffic patrols. And what happens is it's a place to stop off, and then you can leave in a pretty efficient manner and get on an interstate.
Unless you're in the morning on West Main Street.
Exactly. Ironically, the last breakout that we, actually 2 weeks ago, one of our residents had one of those cameras in their homes. They were able to monitor from their workplace, and we actually caught the people coming out of the house. So that was a
TV commercial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was, and this latest one is a result of scouring pawn shops, trying to find people's property for them, and we were able to accomplish that. So I wouldn't call us a target. It's just some years have been quiet. For some reason, this year's coming in with a bang, and since the fiscal year started, I've had some difficult cases that have come down. I covered the animal control, the SRO, the communication center. We now are one of the communities that have the updated next generation 911 system, and it's been installed. That didn't cost the community any money. That's a state-initiated program. We're very lucky that 911 provides me operational and support grants for the communication center. This budget would probably be another $50,000 or $60,000 more if they didn't provide those grants. I cross my fingers every year that they're going to come in, and they do. So I don't know if that's working or not, but I just keep getting the application, so I'm excited about that. The dispatch center, though, is a busy place these days. I mean, we're running a full-time ambulance service now, which is a huge benefit to our community. And speaking with my brothers and sisters who don't have an ambulance service, their response times are a lot greater. We're able to provide some pretty good services to our residents with that program that the fire department runs. And I'm sure the fire chief will tell you the calls for service have increased exponentially as a result of that. And my staff, I'm responsible for the center, are handling those calls for service. So we made some provisions in the CBA this year because of the increased workload. I think they were satisfied with that, thanks to Mike getting that ratified. So although the duties have increased, at least the pay has increased. They used to be one of the lowest in the area, and now they're competitive, which is good. So that's a positive. And the only other thing in the communication center where you'll see an increase in the budget is the phone system. We had to buy a recording system, so that lease, been able to pay portions of it from that grant, the 901 grant, but I do have to come up with some money for that. As far as our fleet, unlike years ago when I sat here back in 07, 08, 09, with the dilapidated vehicle plight with the town, our fleet is as well maintained and efficient as any fleet in the area.
Is that why your vehicular supplies have gone down so much?
A little bit, but what I did is I've moved some money around, knowing that with new vehicles on the fleet line, I'm not replacing systems in the vehicle that are costing thousands of dollars. This year I'll be able to get 2 vehicles in surplus with 2 new ones arriving with that lease number. Those vehicles, one has about 120 and the other one has about 90. In the day we were running them up to like 180, 190, and those vehicles were tired. So yeah, we're not making those major repairs on those vehicles because 2 new ones will replace that, and more efficiency, smaller engines, less gas, things like that. No more 8-cylinder vehicles like we did in my time. They're just as efficient. The game isn't about speed, if you want to call it a game. You know, we don't need those high performance vehicles like maybe the highway state police do. The 6-cylinder vehicle is perfect for the police services that we provide. As far as the public safety building, it's been a bit of a topic of discussion because of the Central Street property that was purchased by the community. That is on the master plan, awaiting to see what we'll do with that particular property. But as far as the building that we're living in today, although in need of expansion for the fire department, and I could certainly use more space, but you know, we have invested in that building, so that will be brought to a committee as to whether we replace that building, add on to that building. I mean, that's a topic unto itself. So, but the building that we have today, we've put a new roof on. It's 6 years old. The building looks pretty good still. It's got a 7-year-old paint job on it, and one of our local residents took that job on 7 years ago. Put up to 4 coats of paint on the building, so it's sustaining. He did a great job for the money that we paid him. That's in my capital improvement plan to paint that within 3 years so we don't lose it again like we did before. We did put a new septic system in the building, so the entire rear of the building's been repaved. The chief put new smoke detector systems in for the entire building 5 years ago. We've replaced a bunch of windows that were leaking. We've done that. That's an ongoing project. Building has a lot of windows. They're not the best of quality window, but we're replacing them to try and maintain that. And we replaced our hot water system in the building. So until that study is brought forward and that committee is formed, we'll maintain what we have right now. We don't have a lot of money to maintain the building, but there's a lot of volunteer efforts between myself and the fire department to keep it, you know, as aesthetically pleasing as it is, as well as to keep it as clean as we can. Like I say, my business doesn't involve revenue. Not really concerned about that. It's not part of any policing model, but our existence does generate revenue, so it's in there, whether it be by way of fine, civil disposition of bylaw violations, and property dispositions. Like I said, cruises and other surplus property that I have to get rid of, permits and reports. It is noted, though, that the new Public Records Freedom of Information Act, which was instituted last year, when I'm not charging for police reports anymore, because it's such a minuscule cost to charge that I don't accept cash. So when someone comes in and you have to collect a nickel for a police report, it would cost me more to deal with that nickel than just give them the piece of paper. It's a push of a button. So the the revenue from the requests from police reports will drop off. But it's insignificant because to manage the new system would just be too cumbersome. I did mention some of our special initiatives. We're still working on, obviously, our juvenile intervention programs as well as our seniors. Work very closely with Colleen's office. We've trained her staff, I'm sure she told you. We're working with the senior center to keep that as safe as it can be, as well as our schools. Georgetown's very committed to both ends of our population, and I think we've proven that over time. We have our own school district, pre-K through 12, which I think is a gem for this community, and I work very closely with the superintendent. We have an SRO, which is rare for our population of our district, but it's proven successful in the last 2 years. We've been able to really intervene in some really serious cases, and although you can't measure the deterrence factor, we know it's there, because when it's quiet, it means we're doing it right. And the last page is the statistical data that we report to the National Reporting Service. You'll see the numbers. Now, when people look at stats, for us who know what statisticians do, the number can mean whatever it wants. But what our job is, and what we have to do with the FBI, as well as the Uniform Crime Reporting System, is to be able to categorize a call for service. So you'll see that the numbers, if you compare, this report's done every year. I do this every year and submit it for our annual report, and then I submit it to you. If you compare the numbers from last year, some are up, some are down. The significance, though, is if there is a particular crime, and regardless of its category, it's that we want to service our resident and our population the best that we can. Of course, I watch the budget, but if I have a family or a resident in Georgetown that's a victim of a crime, I will do everything in my power to make sure that we help them and get what they need. We've done some interventions for folks. We've actually gone to as far as Brockton and helped families of people in need and brought their family members back if they're in trouble. It costs money, but I think it's worth every penny, because it could be us that we're in trouble and we need the assistance of our department, and so those anomalies are what's costing me money, but I think it's worth it, and I think that we're showing that we're doing the right thing, and we're helping our residents who pay for the service, and I think we provide a pretty good service. And that, Mr. Chairman, is my report.
Thank you very much. As always, it's comprehensive.
As far as the money detail, do you have a slide up there, Mike, for us? Yeah. Make sure I have the right.
I just fixed it to make it look like yours. That
Okay.
you gave me. You're talking about the operating budget?
Yes.
There you go.
That's the new one I sent with the updates.
I believe so.
Should have a department total 1637520.
Well, purchases are 174.
4050, correct?
Yeah. I have an anomaly up here. I have to
Fix that.
see where that
Okay.
came from.
Well, what we did was, when Mike had sent me the documents, obviously, purchase of services is pretty straightforward. Like I said, there's some small increases there because of a contractual obligations with our CAD system. Goes up every year about 2.5%, as is my affiliation with NEMLEC, which is our school rapid response task force that we have a member in to assist the school district. They pay for half that bill, though, but it has gone up. There was an increase in that, as well as the lease I said concerning the phone system. What happened from FY18 to FY19, if you look at some of the numbers, is we recategorized some of the expenses, because as I looked at the new purchase of services accounting categories, there were some that we were probably, I don't know, we were trying to drive them to that account, but they didn't belong there. They were more supply-driven than service-driven, so I moved it around. We've been trying to use the new system since 2011, although it was just enacted 2 years ago. So I'm really getting to a point now where it's getting pretty defined. You'll see professional and technical went up, but you'll see that it was a result of the categories of tuition and some other categories to push that number. Other purchase services was like a miscellaneous. I was able to take that. That other purchase services really should have been divided into the other line items. That's why you see that 22,876 come off the rolls, but it's really in there. As you can see, some of them have gone up exponentially, but overall, Mike's office has picked up the total payments of our landline phone system, with the exception of the recorder, which I'm responsible for because of 911.
So is that 5340? That's the reason that's down?
Yes.
We have all communications under
Right.
the administration budget.
And it's a great plan moving forward because, as I would say 5 years ago, we had our electric bill in here for the building, we had our gas bill in here, we now have the telephones. Mike's also put together a plan where we're actually sharing maintenance services. So we're paying for the supplies, but we don't have to pay for the labor, which is saving some money too for us with regard to fixing the building.
So essentially, Mike, what you're doing is getting some kind of economies of scale by crossing the different departments with these services?
Yeah, and for billing purposes too, we can just track it a lot easier.
Okay.
It's not all over the place, it's in one line item now.
Right, so it's much easier to understand.
Yeah.
Is this the one they have here?
I don't, it's up here, I'm not totally,
Something's not falling on one of your charts, okay.
it's up here.
But you're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And as far as personnel, if there are no other questions with regard to purchase of services,
No, I think one of the key things you've done is you've streamlined and simplified this, so it's much easier to understand.
yeah, I think what happened when we originally started the new chart of accounts, we attempted to drill down into those details so that it was pretty easy, we thought, to examine where that money's going. But what happens is when you read that chart of accounts and you realize, like tuition, for example, we thought that we would use that line item as a line item to put training. However, if you read what tuition really is, it's about the district and tuition-based monies they're spending. It has nothing to do with tuition for the police department, so I zeroed that line item. Purchase of services, using it as a dump all for miscellaneous. Try to, finite that a little more, so you're not just having this one big total, and then you have to describe and define what that total is. And I think people know that these are moving every day. If we have an emergency or we need to eliminate a particular line item to satisfy that emergency, it's going to happen.
Right, because
within-
you can't predict.
I can't predict that.
So really, your budget is just up, if I'm rounding 25,000 from the previous year, just 1.5%
That's
based on what
correct.
we have.
Yeah,
So,
The,
yeah.
the question that I would have, and I ask it every year,
sure.
in terms of the future of the department, in terms of its size, we've had numerous discussions year after year in terms of reserve offices versus permanent offices versus the number of offices. Going forward, where do you think we have to be?
Well, I put together the strategic plan for the steering committee that we had been working with for the last 2 or 3 years, and I had recommended that we do add an officer so that we can get the full complement up to probably 15 and eliminate the reserve force, managing 15, 16, 17 part-time people. There's large turnover with that.
And training costs, as you.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, with the police officers, unlike when probably I was hired, I don't know if I'll date myself, but it went from being able to get somebody on the road in a couple of maybe weeks of training. It takes almost 6 months to take someone from non-police to make them an efficient police officer because of the dynamics of society today.
It's much more complicated.
Everything, and the certifications are just daunting. So, as an example, I hired 5 part-time reserve officers in October. Wonderful. I mean, they're working. but 2 of them have already been asked by other departments who need full-time officers to come to my department because I hire a good police officer. They're trained, they're very, very knowledgeable in the job because we do it right. And then, you know, she's been asked to go to Haverhill. You know, she's going to go become a full-time police officer. I have another one who's being asked to go to Everett. So the reserve force is a training ground for us for full-time officers, which I'll present in my next portion of the budget here. Is I had a resignation for personal reasons in October, a full-time, long-time employee, and then I just had a sudden retirement for March, a 30-year employee, so there's 2 vacancies. The good news is for the reserve force is I'm able to take from that reserve force people that have been vetted and trained, but they need a full-time 6-month academy to be certified. So you can be a reserve officer for 4 or 5 years. You police this community on your own. You're a viable police officer by statute, but then the nuance is that you have to have a full-time academy to work full-time hours. So it's a shell game that we play.
Right, and I think.
So I lose them for 6 months.
Right.
Then I have to fill the vacancy and the reserve spot. So I'm deficit 2 people. You know, and we're chasing our tails all the time with that.
Right, and I think that one of the issues we had was we were spending all the money to train these people, and then somebody else would essentially, as you're saying, Haverhill and Everett take them.
And they, you know, and Beverly has taken one of my offices, and you know, we talk about it at the level of chief, and our department has good police officers.
So the issue that we face going forward is retention as much as anything else.
Yes, and that's what I put in my in my notes, is that having 15, 16 part-time people, maybe have 5 or 6 where you're managing, and have more full-time. There's a fringe benefit issue that, I mean, increasing my budget for salary for police is very different because Mike's budget goes up too. We have to pay for insurance, we have to pay for retirement. Excuse me. And I also have, there's a logistical problem with our reserve forces. I have people who would work as many hours as you could give them, but I can't let them work consistent or any greater than 40 or greater, because now they're full-time and I'm in violation. Then I have to afford them the ability for benefits. So I have to manage their time as reserves.
Right.
So maybe I can get 3 shifts a week out of them, but it can't be consistent, the same shift. It has to be rotating. That allows that per diem.
Right, and that encourages them to look elsewhere over time.
Yeah, you know, I have some career reserves. I mean, we have probably 5 or 6 people that have been here 10, 15 years because they have a career, and this is just they supplement their income with it. They enjoy it. They grew up here. They live here. But I'm losing that to the younger generation because they're getting out of college. They're looking for a job.
I'm sorry.
Is there, well, no. Is there value in us looking at, maybe this is the point, or we're getting close to the point, at seeing where your officers have departed, you know, Beverly, the other locations, looking at what the cost is for the academy, the cost to replace, all of those things, knowing that you're inherently going to have this increase in fringe, but maybe starting to look at that side by side, and for us to really make a commitment, if we can see the return on investment, because we're losing training, knowledge, etc., where we start to be more aggressive about having actual full-time officers and reducing the part-time
That's
thing.
where I was going with this.
Sorry, we think
That's
so
all right.
alike.
That's all right.
But I think I'd like to see analysis
We've
on
plowed that
that.
ground
Chief,
before.
Chief, there's not only that, you're also losing a lot of our seasoned police officers too, as well, correct? I mean, we have quite a few seasoned officers that are reaching, not that they're going to retire, but they're reaching the retirement age as well, correct?
Absolutely. If you look at the force today, I never thought I'd say it, but I sit here today as the senior officer on the department because I always was the kid, as Wayne so eloquently just said. But now, you know, and you as residents see it when you see your police officers out there when they come for appointment. Our department's getting younger and younger, and the senior staff is getting older and older. And losing that knowledge base too is difficult for me because with my part-time staff, I cannot schedule them together. You know, you don't want 2 officers that have only been on the job, although they've been trained for 6 months, 2 months on the job working together in case we have a crisis or, you know, we need someone who can handle a situation. So you're absolutely right. The retirement that I just sustained in March 18th is his last day. I will replace that with a clearly a younger officer, but I've had a retirement every single year since I've been the chief. So I think there's only 4 or 5 of us left, and 3 of those people have almost 30 years on the job, so you're absolutely right.
I think that
Right,
makes
so financially speaking, besides the fact that you're losing, the knowledge and abilities of these officers, but financially speaking, it's the financial aspect is we have the money there to train up people. We're reducing the salary, so we have the financial ability to then train up and pay people to be able to go to the academy and, because their salaries will be substantially lower. Do I understand that correctly, right?
It is lower. I wouldn't say substantially lower, because what happens is, depending on the officer who's walking out the door, their educational level and the shift that they were assigned, and the officer walking in.
Right, I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
so there's a differential concerning education. There's a differential concerning shift assignment. Although the CBA posts every 6 months to allow these officers, senior officers, to pick a specific shift. That's why when we look at the details of salary, I reduced it even more, because the number changes. If Officer A elects to work a different shift, that could change their salary upwards of $5,000 or $6,000, depending on the shift that they pick, the differentials, and the education level that they have. But you are partially correct in that, for instance, the officer that is retiring in March, and the officer that's being hired she has a lesser educational level than the officer walking out the door. So there is, and you can see it's reflective in these numbers. The first numbers that Mike had crunched was about $7,000 greater than the number I submitted. I corrected that, and I gave it back to him with a lesser number, because there was some savings there.
Okay.
So, Chief, if I was to understand this, and you mentioned earlier, like that you're senior officers, and that number has dwindled. In my opinion, as a citizen, maybe speaking for a moment, this is a critical point where we need to really convert and look at some more full-time officers and increasing that complement so they have more time with those senior officers.
I think, you rationalize the vehicles in terms of the cost may have gone up temporarily, leveled off, and have actually come down as a result of your
Correct.
planning. And I think what Robin is suggesting, that we might look at the same type of rationalization with the personnel themselves. That is, maybe we go through a transition where it might cost us a little bit more money to put on full-timers, and then it would balance, and then eventually the cost would go down.
Well, I think if you look at FY17 on your sheet and FY18 salary, the personnel detail, it was $1,030,000, and it went down to $1,007,000. Yet we added a person. We added the SRO position.
Right.
So there was a benefit to that, because 2 people walked out the door since then, and 2 new people have walked in. There was a spike in 17 because there was a transfer, thanks to this board and thanks to the Board of Selectmen. We were blessed to get that position. And looking at our schedule, if you look at it from a holistic standpoint, the police department, the baseline is 2 officers on duty 24 hours a day. So at 1500, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when the admin positions leave, you have 2 officers on duty. If one of those officers has to take a vacation day, if there's a sick call, if there's an emergency call out, that leaves 1 officer. Well, we don't run the police department with just 1 person. So there's some backfill. If we had 3 people assigned to that shift and that happened, we would exponentially save money by not having to call in someone on overtime. That person is, so if we go 3, that 3rd person doesn't show up today, we still just run light. We run 2. But for the day, we still have the complement of officers to run the shift. And if you look at that from a 24-hour standpoint, 7 days a week, that's why the ideal number for our department, we're at 12. You took and made it 15, similar to what the town of Hamilton does. And we're busier than Hamilton, and we're larger, both population and land mass. That's what they do, and it's a good model. And it reduces the size of your reserve force, but it also increases your police training, your police experience, and if you do have something happen, you're not scrambling trying to fill the vacancy, because there is no vacancy. You're able to take that officer, handle the emergency, and keep you 2.
That's what you were thinking, Robin, is that correct?
It sounds like it's the time to do it. I've done, I haven't been on this as long as you have, but it seems like we keep hearing the same
Yeah.
challenges. And I think I feel like this is the time to address it. And I think when the money all shakes out, we'll see the return on the investment,
Well, that's my point.
and you can target some talent.
But, again, we discussed this with Mike to really determine the feasibility of it. But I think the SRO worked out very, very well. And that was, actually, you were the one that was, in terms of working with us, we're promoting that quite heavily.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I think there's nothing, education and public safety are the key things in terms of, you don't have second chances. And I think that, I hate to sound trite, but that's, I think, what we've got to bear in mind.
So, Mike, is it possible to have that modeled for us for the next time we look over the budget? Is that feasible to have some modeling around that to see how the impact would be?
Yeah, Chief and I will work on that.
Is that
That's
okay
all right
with you,
with
Ed?
you.
Well, it's
That's
okay if it's
fine
okay
with
with
me.
you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's been, I've been the chief now for over 5 years, and I've realized that is the direction the community does have to go. I think that, growing the part-time force for the sake of attempting to diminish the need for our full-time staff. Prior to the 2017 hiring and the federal grant for the SRO, the police department had not added an employee to our roll since 1999. We were during a 30% population increase, a 40% call volume increase. We just stayed the same. We've been running the department in the exact same model that I have right now. I was hired in 1985, and then in 1988 we started with I used to work alone. We had one officer on duty. You'd show up, it was just you and a dispatcher. And then we just couldn't sustain that model. So in 88, we changed, and then in 1999, we added that third person to give us 10 full-time officers, and we hadn't changed it since.
Well, I
So-
think now, at least now is the time to start looking at it. Because I think that the town is growing, and as you say, that as different things come on in town, for example, the new East Main Street field, I consider that a remote area to provide coverage for. And there are other things that are going on in town. The town is it's growing in different ways. It may not be, you may not see it directly, but it is. The amount of traffic coming through town, for example, is growing.
It's actually, I think the increases are larger than people realize, because when I look at it with Merrimack Valley, I'm absolutely amazed. What we used to call rush hour is rush hours.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long time. But then, when I go downtown on a Sunday morning, that's the town that I grew up in, and it's quiet, and so the town, it explodes, and then it goes down to where we remember it as the community.
Well, I remember we never there was no stop sign, no stoplight in town. And then it went to a flashing light, and that caused all sorts of problems. 'cause
Then a
nobody
four-way
seemed to
stop.
Understand, yeah, four-way stop. And then
Urban systems, in the 90s, we redid the entire community, that's where the traffic lights came from. But as I know, economic development and planning, zoning, there's nowhere else to put the vehicles. I field complaints daily concerning traffic. Of course, enforcement is my issue, but we've been able to do a lot more enforcement with just that one additional person, especially during the summer with the SRO. We're able to target, saturate, and we've had some success in helping people in the neighborhoods. I have people call and say, it's really making a difference. And I'm like, oh, I don't usually get to hear that. That's good to hear.
Well, I think that it's like having a lawyer. You don't appreciate them till you need them.
Right. So those are the challenges that we're looking at. We lost some of our grant funding because the crash data is down, but it's difficult to crash when you're just sitting in line.
True.
That is the truth, that the traffic has volume to a point where there are no spectacular crashes most of the time because nobody's driving.
Yeah.
Knock on wood. I have to knock on wood every 5 minutes, but
that's the other issue when you consider it, that that active and effective police activity keeps down the cost of home insurance. It keeps down the cost of automobile insurance. So it is, like the schools always like to say, it's an investment.
yeah. And what happens is, and it's said at all levels in our criminal justice system and in our court system is, I like the message when they say, stay out of Georgetown. If you're a bad guy, don't come. stay away, because
I think we
we're
need-
there, we're out there.
Right.
And those directed patrols and saturation enforcements, as small as they are effective.
Then I think we should move on because we have the chief waiting too. Sorry.
I didn't know we had company.
Can I just make a couple comments here? So Chief, I just wanted to say that I do agree. I think the school resource officer is absolutely 100% on board with that. It's a great program. I think that it's wonderful that the school resource officer is in the schools, and I think it's a great program, and I'm glad that the school resource officer is on call. And I also, the animal officer as well. I see it all the time, especially on the parents groups on Facebook. I feel like that those two programs are huge in Georgetown, 100%. And I have to say, I see the officers everywhere in town. It's not like they're just kind of sitting there, hanging out, doing nothing. I always see them doing something, and I think it's just a valuable, absolutely valuable, part of the town. And I just, 100% kudos to you guys. You're always doing a great job, and I just wanted to kind of, say that, and thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate that, and I know our efforts don't go unnoticed. I'm on social media, and I see that too. And I think that it is our mission to provide, I know that people think we don't get enough funding, and that's absolutely true at times, but what we do get, we're using efficiently and effectively, and this community supports its police department above and beyond most communities, and I'm very grateful for that as the chief, but most importantly as a resident. I've lived here my entire life. The fact that the town supports us, the Board of Selectmen, I work closely with our fire department and our town administrator and our highway department. It's a good feed for our success right now. Are we perfect? Absolutely not, but pretty good job.
You guys do a great job. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you for having me.
Any other questions? Well, we ran you over a little bit more than I thought, but I hope that's okay.
That's okay. I'm going to be out of here. This is unbelievable. Usually we have to have pizza, and we're out of here at 2. So this is great.
I want to follow up with Sheila's comments. You do a wonderful job, and the police department is a reflection of its leader, and so
Appreciate
I
that.
want to thank you for that.
I appreciate that.
And also, not to forget all the other departments. We love them too.
Absolutely. As do I. All
We love all y'all.
All y'all.
All y'all.
Thank you very much.
right. Have a great day.
And
for your time.
if again, let's move forward in terms of looking at that option.
Sure. We've done it before. I'll work with Mike.
Mr. Chairman, a casualty of our rapid meeting today, the fire chief was planning to be here by 11:30. I'm sure, I don't know if Jeff appreciates the promotion, but this is Jeff Manning, not the chief.
No, I know. I thought the chief was
Welcome,
on his
Jeff.
heels.
Morning, how are you?
And Jeff, the chief's on his way.
He's at exit 16 on Route 95.
Yeah, so, but Jeff was available and is gonna pinch hit for the chief. Jeff is the chief's budget officer pretty much anyway, so.
Well, they've always been in tandem when I've seen them.
That's right. So,
So let's go twice as fast.
That's right. Well, half as
maybe,
long.
yeah.
If you could just identify yourself, please.
Sure. Jeff Manning, 1 West Street, Georgetown, member of the Georgetown Fire Department.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good
And
morning, everyone.
thank you for coming.
Oh, no problem. I was planning on being here around 11:30, 11:45, but I got
You'll
a, I
have
got
a
a,
free
I got a phone
afternoon
call.
now, yeah.
I was like, whoa, my wife will be thrilled. What do they got for? This is the version I got last night.
That should be it.
The current one? Okay.
Let me just,
Yeah, there were no major changes, really, just
no.
minor uptick in wages due to contractual arrangements with the CBA.
Yeah, that would be 375, 571. So it's up about $4,800 or so.
Yeah, the contract called for a 1.5% increase
Okay.
in wages.
This one looks pretty straightforward.
Plus 16, or almost 17,000, 3.4%.
Should be the same.
Oh, you know what, because he didn't plug that in.
Uh-huh.
That's something he was working on that.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's pretty much what the contract was 1.5, you said, Mike, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's no major changes there. One of the things the chief, well, he'll get into that too, and I'll get into it later, but, so that's pretty much it from a contractual standpoint, that's the increase in the wages. The purchase and services area, you'll see fiscal 18 was 25,000. That's gonna increase to 35,000. With the aging fleet, the engine 5, which we've talked about replacing that for the last couple of years, and there's a hold on that for the capital improvement. The repairs to that continue. Last year, fiscal 18, we spent roughly $20,000 on repairs on that truck. As of 6 months into this fiscal year, we're already over 17,000 in repairs to that truck. It continues to have issues. It's just it's one of those, we just keep putting the Band-Aids on it. And one of the things, I know Chief had presented at capital improvement for a $600,000 discussion for the replacement of engine 5. We talked about it last year. One of the things we'd like to do this year would be to put that on the Fall Town annual meeting for approval. That way we could get things going during the year, and then we would take delivery of it the following year, which would be the next fiscal year.
Which would be 21, 20?
20, roughly 20, yeah. If it's gonna happen, the same thing would happen to the ladder truck. At some point, this thing is gonna be non-repairable, i.e. the frame's gonna go, the pump's gonna go, and we'll be coming to Mike saying, Mike, we need emergency funding for a new truck. So try to get things, be a little
How
more
much is a new
proactive than
truck
reactive.
again? Is that new, or is it,
No, brand new, we've budgeted 600, a maximum
Okay.
of 600.
I've seen it in the CIP, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's in this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it would actually replace the problem is we never budgeted for the old ladder truck where we were paying $77,000 a year.
On the lease.
This would be, it would come in about $77,000 a year, but this time we have to put it in the budget. We can't be robbing Peter
Right, because
to
it's
pay
not a
Paul.
lease.
Right.
And the town votes on it. Votes on the truck.
Well, it could still be a lease, the only thing
Yes.
is it would be a budgeted line item for the
Yes.
lease, versus instead of going to town meeting every year for the approval to make the lease payment, it would be budgeted in, so it would be an automatic payment.
Which makes more sense.
Yes,
And it's a lease purchase.
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, so you have something at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, because we paid the ladder truck off, what, 2 fiscal years ago at this point?
Last year.
Was it last year's fiscal year? Okay. I knew it was-
This is the
it was
first
in the
year
last-
this is the first year I went looking for
I'm looking for
$77,000.
$77,000. Well, at the same time.
I'm looking for more money now.
Everybody, if you don't ask, you don't get, and it's, we're in a similar situation with the police department as far as the town's growing, services are increasing. The average age of the residents is increasing as well, from that standpoint. So everything kind of goes hand in hand from that perspective.
What year is engine number 5? Like, how old is it?
1999, so it's 19 years
It's
old.
only 18 years, it's middle-aged. In terms of,
Problem
In
is-
dog years, it's about, oh, God.
Let's not talk about
He just told us that they put, what, 20 grand and 17 grand in it in the last 2 years?
No.
No, it's
last
double
6
that.
months.
Last
first 6
Last
months.
6 months.
6 months, right.
It's double that.
If the frame is rotten, I mean,
It's,
it's
there's,
got
there's,
no
there's,
hope.
there's some developing issues with the frame, let me put it that way.
So we're spending,
So engine 5, actually, through December was 18.5. Last year was over 17, last year was over 17,000.
So that's like a third of the way through a lease payment.
okay.
So anyways,
Question, let me just ask a question that's a what if the frame issues turned into a frame crisis? How quickly could we respond?
How quickly can you get a new truck?
Well, that's the question.
You can't.
You can't
Okay.
You'd have
would
to
take-
borrow it from some other town.
borrow somebody's.
yeah, and the towns are good that way. Years ago, our old engine, the old engine one, the old Han, we lent that out to the town of Rowley for a year and a half, 2 years, until they could get one of their trucks up and running.
But obviously, the best course of action is to get this approved ASAP through the town, so that we have a contingency.
It's
Yeah,
not
'cause we're
necessarily a
just-
good thing to be borrowing somebody else's, because chances are you're not borrowing.
You're not
You're
borrowing
borrowing
for
something
free.
that will go down the road, but it's
Yeah.
Well, one of the things you have the ability to do, and I did it when I did the ambulance projects on the remounts. Depending on the vendor that you use, they have sometimes what they call demo trucks that they may be able to. You can negotiate it into the deal. They may be able to give you a truck for 6, 8, 9 months of the truck's being built. That does happen. It doesn't happen often, but in a rare case, that could, and it would be a newer truck. And again, you borrow someone else's headache is where you're going, I think, with that. Because it's someone else's reserve piece that becomes your front line piece.
And that leaves them with nothing.
It's kind of the trickle down effect. Everybody basically,
Somebody's at the
someone's
bottom.
going to give someone another truck.
So what's the lead time?
The city of Lynn right now, only because my mom's still down and I'm involved with some of the stuff that goes on down there. They have a reserve Boston piece right now because one of their pumps just died in that fire a couple of weeks ago.
What's the lead time for building, and what's the lead time for us financing it?
Well, we'd have to get approval at the town meeting.
This spring.
So,
Yeah.
May, and then another 9
months.
months.
So we're
That's
looking
for the
12
fiscal year
months
19.
Yeah.
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
That's why it
Yeah.
doesn't hit.
So we can't afford to screw around with that one.
That's a high priority.
Yeah. Okay.
So just to look at the budget line, I mean, everything else on here looks straightforward to me, but I have a question
Sure, no,
related
no
to the
worries.
truck. So 17 to 18, we only budgeted 15,000 in maintenance and repairs to the truck, but we spent a lot more than that.
Oh, yes.
And then, for example, you just mentioned 17,000 through December.
Mm-hmm.
We're only budgeting a $10,000 increase. So we're actually tracking ahead and spending a lot more, and we're our way, as Ed mentioned, to the lease.
And the 17,000 is just on the one vehicle.
It's not, yeah.
It doesn't factor in the entire fleet.
So we're already overspending our budget in that line item. Okay. Sounds like you guys have your work cut out for town meeting.
And the reason that we're beating this like a dead horse is because the viewers at home.
Correct.
You
No,
know,
understood.
they're going to be the ones that are
They're the
ultimately
ones that are ultimately,
responsible.
right.
For
At the same
approving.
time, at the same time, if we go down a pump with our ISO rating would change, which then that has an effect going back to folks' homeowners insurance, because right now we have, quote, 3 certified pumps. We got engine 1, engine 5, engine 4. So we go down one over a period of time without either someone borrowing or demo or renting one, if you will, then that ultimately has an effect on that rating. So it's a trickle-down effect across the board.
Right.
One, it decreases our coverage of the town, so it becomes a life safety issue to provide the service to the town of Georgetown itself, the citizens themselves.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's important that's stressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you mention it here because for people who may watch or come, it's not just, I don't think I'll need this service. It's also, it does impact you in other ways, as you mentioned about the
Again,
insurance
it's
on
the
your
insurance.
house.
It all has an effect.
And because of the time frame, we can't defer it.
Right,
And,
okay.
and we've been really good from a fiscal responsibility standpoint, since I've been involved. We do a lot of work on managing the numbers and making things work, and when we've purchased new equipment or upgrades, I've been involved in that, so we've done pretty well from that standpoint, working with different vendors and things to get the best, bang for the buck from that standpoint. We just don't say, the 600 is a number that we will not go over.
Yeah.
My target is much lower than that, but again, you'd have to take in the cost of, the cost of doing business. Things go up every year. The longer we wait, every year, a truck increases roughly between 4.7 and 5.8% per year goes up.
And the kind of economy that we're in now, that's going to increase.
Yeah, over time.
One of the other things you kind of have to take into consideration, and this is just a simple, times have changed. A fire truck today is a very technical piece of equipment, where 30 years ago, it was a truck with a pump on it and a tank.
There was no digital gauges on it.
Now, it's this thing, it has a hiccup. Basically everybody's standing there looking at each other going, the computer says this, but we don't know what that means.
Right.
They're so far beyond the ability of anybody, and you can't have this person just sitting in the back room there to come out and say, I'll fix it.
No, you have to be,
Doesn't
you have to be
exist.
certified.
He
The oth-
shows up in a van that costs, just to have him show up on the property, is probably $800.
Just to, just to do the diagnostics.
Yeah.
You know, at the same time too, from the cost, when they changed the diesel regulations several years back, now there's the DEF that you have to, it's the fuel additive that you have to put in. That was 15,000 per engine. So, right out of the gate in 2008, everyone's truck went up $15,000.
Okay.
Just because of the engine alone. So it is, again, it's one of those things, like to you said, Wayne, there's so much computerization in a lot of trucks, but at the same time, you can dumb them down a little bit. You don't need the bells and whistles. You just need something, you know, you pull the lever to the pump, the water comes out the other end.
there's
So,
still-
and
there's
that's part of
still
the,
the
oh no, there's
electronics
still an
and-
awful lot of electronics in it. I mean, I was down in Louisiana when they built the ladder truck. There's probably 6 miles of wires in that truck. And they were all, I was like, oh my God, I've never seen such a web. But it all made sense when they were done, and everything works. You know, so again, and you have to be certified. Now, these trucks don't get worked on here. Either they come to us or we take them to the vendors from
Well,
that standpoint.
I'm in support of this, of the new.
Do we have a listing of the age of the fleet, like all the trucks and how old they are and all that? Is that available at all? Or?
yes.
Yeah, we can give you that.
Yes.
Engine 4 is a 96. Engine 1 is an 05.
That's the newest one, isn't it?
Yeah. engine 1's a 05. Engine 5 is a 99. The ladder truck is an 07. Each of the ambulances have 15 cabin chassis, 2015 cabin chassis. The boxes on the back of those trucks, one is a 2003 and one is a 2004. So we'll call them, those when we did the remount project a couple years ago.
hybrids.
Yeah, hybrids, if you will. So it is, you know, it's amazing to sit here and say that the ladder truck's 10 years old.
And the difference is it's a lot more expensive to buy a fire truck than it's a police car.
We don't have any current debt on any type of vehicles like right now, right? Like I
I'm
didn't
sorry?
see, like the debt listing, like everything we've ever paid for fire trucks. I mean, they're all paid off. It's like
Correct.
It's
Yeah.
time to cycle it back up again, right? So
Yeah, I think
Makes-
engine
that
1
makes
was
sense.
a debt exclusion.
Yeah,
The
we're
ladder
gonna
truck
hit
was a
this
lease.
point.
Yeah.
You know, anyway.
Yeah.
Well, should we move on to the ambulance? Do we have any more questions?
I had a quick question. I'm sorry. So when you do borrow, not I hope we never get there, but if you have to borrow a truck from say Raleigh or something, there's a cost with that as well too. Like the town will say, okay, you're gonna. It's like almost like a lease. Like you, I mean, is it just like okay, you can have our truck? Or is there like, well, you're
We got to
using our
pay them
truck?
at least a fee? No.
Get no fee? Okay, just curious.
No, that's part of what goes on. I mean, what would happen is, you know, we'll do the maintenance and take care of the truck while we have it.
But if, chances are, you borrowed it from a community and one of theirs breaks down, they're gonna want that
Going
one
back.
back.
Oh, sure,
Not
sure.
that didn't happen when we did that.
Sure.
No, the only other thing that the chief was going to discuss was going forward with the increase of services and the inspections that are done and the scheduling that we've had for the last 8 years now. There's been he wants to get some consideration of possible full-time coverage, at least a minimum of 2 people going forward. The model that we've used has worked, but like every other model, it's all done by per diem shifts. Everyone else has either a full or part-time job, and then we do shifts. Myself, I do nights and weekends based on my primary job.
Can you give us, he or you give us something in terms of something on paper that gets us something to consider?
Yes, he has something that he can provide you. We've done some analysis. I've done some staff costing models projected out.
What's this?
So you want to,
Some consideration of full-time staffing.
Oh, okay.
and would those be firefighters or other different positions? Or?
They'd be firefighter EMTs.
Are we talking about EMTs that, not EMTs, but personnel there overnight that are at the station?
That's also part of the strategic plan going forward is overnight coverage. Right now, we staff from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the station, so it's a 15 hours in the station. And then overnight, there's usually anywhere between 1 and 3 because, again, the staffing models, and just people have our lives, from home from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. So
And
if
that's
it-
we've been considering that for a couple of years.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that, again, just
But I think
Going
that
forward.
every year that we should look at that in terms of seeing if it's feasible or
Right.
not. And unless we see the numbers we can't determine that.
Yeah, we've done a takeoff on that, an analysis. Yeah, he's got a full analysis on that.
Okay.
All right. You okay with that, Mike?
Yeah, I've talked to the chief about it. Do a full study, staffing study.
Right, because it's for the same reason that we talked to the police department or the library anyway. It's the
Exactly
growth
the same.
that's, we're going through the growth.
Yeah, and the services are getting taxed based on the size of the staff. I mean, we haven't really increased staff since, God, I mean, we've changed the model back 8 years ago, but, you know, we did nearly just under 2,000 responses last year, fire and EMS.
Yeah, and I'm perfectly open to looking at everything this year, because it doesn't mean we'll say yes,
Yeah.
but it does mean we're gonna give it active consideration.
Exactly. At least the dialogue has been started from that perspective. Then, you know, we can do the analysis, y'all can do your analysis, and, you know, we can move forward from that.
Are we all agreed on that?
Okay.
Jeff, can we move to the
Sure,
ambulance?
ambulance, yep. Again, no major hiccups on this as far as that. The staffing wages are consistent. Again, the change in that would be from the CBA and the contractual raise that will take effect.
In terms of the revenue side of this,
Revenue side, yep. Recently, we had just increased, on an annual basis, we take a look at the fees, we do a survey of all surrounding areas, and then we adjust fees on that. Medicaid and Medicare continue to cut their percentage of fund back to us, so that has an impact, so that's why we try to stay ahead of that on an annual basis. The collection rate through December, because I didn't do January yet, was roughly 84 to 86, yeah, call it 86%, what we're allowed. So we'll bill out X
yeah,
based on what they call contractual arrangements.
Right.
Which is usually anywhere from 48 to 54%, then you get that. So we'll bill, say, $1,000 based on what
Right,
the
and we
contractual
can't
arrangement
balance
is.
bill.
We're only gonna get 600
Right,
back out of
right.
that 1,000. So, you know, you can't bet on that, so that's one of the things, it's always an ongoing situation. From a line item standpoint, which one?
That's not it.
No.
Right.
Was it professional and technical? That number there is a combination of the billing that we pay to Comstar, which is the billing agency we use in Rowley, and for the advanced life support or the paramedic units that we call in that assist us. So that's that number there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you actually dropped it because I looked at it and needed to adjust that down a little bit.
What is other purchase services?
Other purchases, that is a culmination of supplies, vehicle supplies, medical supplies, our uniform allowances. What else is that?
Okay.
It's a very large, it's kind of a catch-all. Because of the way Munis runs versus how we have our GLs created, they don't match, so we gotta kind of marry several, in this case, like 9 different lines together to make that one.
Okay.
So it makes it tough to look at. But that's what that is made up into those numbers there. There are no capital improvements projected for the next fiscal year on the ambulances. We did that last year with the upgrades to the automatic load systems that were installed over the summer.
Now, didn't we give some consideration to, this certain levels of what you get paid for in the ambulance, that we could only take some calls, but we had to pass on other calls because we didn't have the expertise or the certification for the.
Basically, it's called advanced life support or
Yeah.
paramedic services. No, we don't pass on a call. Any call that comes in, be it a BLS call or basic life support, which is what we're licensed at,
Right.
or if it requires a higher level, we respond to that, and then we either get mutual aid from Newbury during the day, or Atlantic Ambulance in the evenings, or Trinity, based on where we're going.
Right.
They'll send the higher level to us, and we work together.
Okay.
And transport together. Roughly, we did 560 calls last year, and only 23% were ALS, or that we needed advanced life support. So it's kind of it's been consistent over time. It's actually, as our services has matured, the level and experiences of our people has as well. So we don't require the ALS or the paramedic services as often, and that's decreased every year. And the first year we did the service, 60% of our calls, we had advanced life support coming with us. We're down to 24%. So,
Okay, I'm good with the, this year. My question is, the enterprise fund reserves, what do you got in that? What's the balances in that?
108,000, correctly.
How much?
108,000.
108,
Yes.
okay.
And again, that's less the 65,000 we just spent out.
Okay,
August.
yeah,
Yeah, so that continues to maintain and grow.
okay.
Which was our concern when we
Yeah.
started this thing.
And,
Yeah, and take into consideration too, we spent 65,000 last year. In the previous 2 years, another 156,000 on remounts.
Right.
So it's been able to maintain and gain itself in support.
I guess in the planning for the future, is there any budgeting done on that? Projections out as to
As far as,
how much are we going in and how much is coming out?
Oh, yeah.
Is it looking in the positive? It's looking in the positive.
yes.
Okay.
Wayne, and Mike, you know, because you know how I am. I'm very, very conservative, so I work these numbers constantly. It's like, almost like the cracks in the sidewalk. I can tell you where the weaknesses are and where the strengths are, and I do an awful lot of trend analysis, so I can see what months that are busier than others, what slows down, what months good collections. The only thing that continues to be a struggle is the fact that, again, as I said earlier, the aging population in the town, a lot of people on Medicaid and Medicare. Medicare isn't paying like they used to. So it's a 70-30 split as far as that goes. 70% of our calls are that insurance, whereas the balance are, regular insurances or people that don't have insurance. People still don't have insurance, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So,
And you're at the bottom where the trickle comes out.
but, no, and the ambulance service continues to
So
do
you-
well and expanding
You
and
don't
grow.
see any weaknesses coming up in the future years where
My
there's-
concern is always with the government piece of it.
Yeah.
To be honest
Medicare.
about it, Wayne, yeah.
That's probably
Continue to
something
fund
you'll
it.
never,
Yeah.
if you get a handle on it, you'll be one of the people.
No offense, but if I had a handle on it, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be in DC.
Yeah, well, the problem that you're gonna have
There'll
is
be a lot of people looking
you-
for
you're
you.
facing two opposite trends. The trend of the people getting older and the trend of Medicare paying less.
Right.
Those are the challenges.
And one of the other things I've noticed, again, because I'm a numbers geek, is the age of people on Medicaid and Medicare is dropping. Like, surprisingly.
I thought you had to be 65 to get on Medicare, but not Medicaid.
Depends on your illness. I have,
Oh, you're talking about catastrophic illnesses?
or chronic, that ultimately, trust me,
Yeah.
I lose sleep at night over this. The other good thing that's happened as the service has matured is the mutual aid that we do to different towns. We've gone to Boxford multiple times, Groveland quite a bit, Rowley, Ipswich, Haverhill, West Newbury. So it's everybody's, again, the mutual aid system, if someone else is busy and can't staff it, they'll call out, as we would too. So that's another thing that helps, and that's one of the things I look at, is to how to, get past, if we're doing good staffing here and then someone else needs help, that's just straight revenue right back to the account from that standpoint. Questions?
No,
I'm fine, and you've done a great job with the ambulance in particular, because that was
That's my baby.
of my concern when we started this.
Yep, understood.
The one thing that, when we had the study for the ambulance, the thing that really blew my mind, we were doing a little under 400 calls, medical calls a year. And so we based our projections on that, and you heard Jeff saying we're doing over 500. And the people that did the study told us, because it's our own ambulance, because it's got Georgetown written on the side of it, more people will, say, okay, you can take me to the hospital. Other times they were deferring because they didn't know these people.
Yeah.
And-
Municipal
and
services
trust.
have a different,
Yeah.
you know, respect level, if you will, from that standpoint. No, and I remember when, because I wrote the business plan, did all the pro formas and such, and again, in my conservative nature, I remember that the gentleman from, was it Northampton, called me.
Yeah.
And we went through it. And I even went lower than the 400, because I took 3 years of live data that we had and did all the spreads based on that. And it's just continued to grow. Last year's fiscal year was 606 transports from July 1 to June 30.
Now, do you run down to Boston too, or is it basically like Anna Jake's in Beverly? Or?
For the most part, we're based out of, our medical control is Newburyport at the Anna Jake's. Different protocols call for different things, so if it's something to a degree that you have to get to the closest hospital based on the state protocol, we'll go to Haverhill, to the Merrimack Valley. But no, depending on the stability of the patient, if they say, gee, can you take me to Leahy Peabody, we'll take someone to Leahy Peabody. Lawrence General over in Lawrence, I was there the other day. Where else? Methuen, Holy Family Methuen, because that and Haverhill are the same hospital. On occasion, there are several people in town that have certain illnesses that the outlying hospitals can't deal with it. So yes, we do go to Boston.
How do
I've been to
you
Children's, I've been to Mass General, I've been to Brigham and Women's and Beth Israel.
How do you know that? Do you know that? Do you find that out at the time, or do the residents call?
Usually
in
the
and
first
say-
time you take them, they're like, well, I have this particular, illness, and I can't go anywhere but BI. So we'll be like, okay, if they're stable enough and we're all comfortable, we'll take them there. Depending on the call, sometimes we'll have paramedics, sometimes we'll just take them as a basic level. So then we get introduced to them, and then it's usually a chronic type situation, so we get to know them. So then, you hit an address, it's like, okay, I know where I'm going. And then other people, when they're new in town, they'll come and introduce themselves to the chief and say, this is a particular illness that my mom has, or my son, or my daughter. And there's several people that we have packages on, sealed packages, that are in the ambulances because they have specific needs. So yes, we will do that.
And the key thing to point out, in terms of ambulances, this is emergency, not transport.
Right. Yeah, I've run into situations where people actually, it's not emergent, they just need to go to the hospital, and we'll set up through Atlantic a transfer. We also transport to the Portsmouth Regional Hospital as well. That's another cardiac center. So I've been there, and we'll take people there as well.
Any other
Anything else?
questions?
No, I'm good.
Sheila?
I think she fell asleep.
Okay.
Hello.
Thank you, Jeff.
Sorry, I had
very
to
much.
find the mute button, then take it off.
We appreciate your time and efforts.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Jeff.
So what's the plan, gentlemen, ladies?
Well, we have.
What do we have left?
We have the,
Take care.
we're not doing the highway, we're not doing the ZBA.
So at least
The,
parks, water.
Finance administration,
Administration is you now.
yeah.
Okay.
4 to 5.
Can we?
Rest, you want to take a
Take a 5
restroom
minute-
break?
Oh, that'd be great.
Well, we're back, thank you, and we're going to continue on with Mike Farrell, Town Administrator, for the Department of the Administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for everybody's explanation, the administration department includes Board of Selectmen, town accountant, and the treasurer, tax collector. But we budget them separately for detail purposes, but then on a general line item in the budget, they're all combined. In the quote, Selectman Town Administrator's Office, we have two people, myself and the administrative assistant. But then in the operating budget, as I mentioned earlier, we combine a lot of the, all the department expenses, operating expenses. For instance, you see in the energy line item, that's for the entire town, including the school. We combined that several years ago when we did that energy conservation project for the town, or we call it Energy Services, ESCO. So all the electricity and gas for all buildings are in that line item.
Water too?
Not water,
Okay.
So it's
and
energy.
not a light department. So
Yeah.
those,
Yeah.
the separate departments, just those
The
that
water
are on.
bills, not the water department, water bills. Do we pay-
Yes, they're in there too.
Okay.
One good encouraging note, as far as, we usually buy a gas futures contract for a 2-year period, and it's up this year. And the consultant is negotiating that contract right now. He's anticipating a possible 28% decrease.
Good job.
I have not, as you can see, I level funded it, so that could, just the gas portion of that number, but it could result in about a $50,000 savings.
That's not chump change.
No, definitely not. Now, and that's what I'm hoping to partially pay for, or mostly pay for, if you see the large increase in repairs and maintenance. I mentioned in my intro this morning that we're looking into having a combined maintenance department with the school. And we would, that difference would be our share of that department. We haven't, that's a placeholder right now. We haven't gotten down to the exact dollars and cents of the cost of that, but I have money in there, and you know, with hopefully a $50,000 decrease in the energy line item, that would pay for a lot of that.
Okay.
The only other increase, the professional technical, that includes audit and legal, and the audit contract went up $3,000 this year. It's a third year of a 3-year contract. And the telephone, you can see, that's when we combined everything. We brought it back into the administration in FY18, went from 3,000 to 38,000, but every other department in town was reduced accordingly. So there was no real change. Actually, there was a decrease in overall phone, because this time we went to voice over IP. We got rid of a lot of copper lines. So some really good savings there. And then the other two, town treasurer's budget, they're gonna, you'll see a 2%. It doesn't show in there. There should be a 2% increase in salary line. They have 2.5 people: the treasurer collector, the assistant treasurer collector, and a finance clerk. And actually, they share the treasurer collector office and the town accountant share it ends up being a 32-hour position, but they both share 16 hours a week in the treasurer and the collectors, in the accountant and the collector's office.
What are the other purchase services on the treasurer tax collector one?
Yeah, frankly, we have a new treasurer, and she's cleaning up a lot of old tax deedable properties that
Okay.
haven't been addressed, and that would be for legal expenses.
So you'd expect that to track down once she's finished cleaning up in later years?
It may actually make money over time.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
This would,
But
Mike,
it's money well worth, well spent.
just for clarification purposes, if you would, 5340 is communication. Can you define what that is as opposed to what a telephone charge is, please?
For the treasurer collector,
Yeah.
that's all the legal postings.
Okay. I just don't want there to be any misunderstanding what that
Yeah.
actually is.
It doesn't have to do with the phone, it's legal postings.
Right.
Got it.
Yes. And then
The accountant?
town accountant, pretty cut and dry.
I have to say, Mike, you've done a very good job keeping things level yourself and actually saving money.
Well, yeah, we try.
I got a question from Mike on your maintenance plan of doing something with the schools. Is this going to? I agree with doing it, but is this going to give you in this building a little bit better coverage as far as soon as it gets cold, something, the heating system, is somebody going to be monitoring this other than poor you or poor somebody else coming in?
Yes,
I don't know.
absolutely. I mean, when we did the ESCO project, we spent a lot of money
Yeah.
on controls, and it goes right to Mike Anderson's
So Mike's
cell
going to be,
phone.
right. Okay.
It's on there now, and it's on Janet's computer, and, and that's totally unfair to
I know.
have her looking at all our
And the other thing is, it would
HVAC
improve
controls.
as I was here the other day, and Tom's out there scraping ice off the sidewalks that needed to get cleaned up during the snowstorm that didn't get cleaned up. Is that gonna?
Yeah, they'll be able to help us shovel, although we do pay our custodians, the contract custodians, they're supposed to be doing that. Sometimes they're not as timely, or they come during the snowstorm and they don't come back.
Yeah. If Mike's gonna handle it,
But Mike's guys will,
I mean, it's a small, I know it's a pain in the neck, but
and that's how we used to always take care of it. I mean, my predecessor used to shovel. Steve Przemski and Tom, any of the males in the building, we'd grab a shovel and throw some salt out. But they shouldn't have to be doing that either.
Right.
But they do it.
Do we have any other questions? Sheila?
I think it's.
Yeah, Mike, I don't know if necessarily this is the right time to be asking this question or not, or later on. I know that the last time we were in the building, there was, again, another problem with the, I think it was a sprinkler system, had frozen or something like that. And I'm wondering if there's anything, as far as budgetary, way, I'm lacking the right word right now. But anything that we can do as far as preventative maintenance, that sort of thing, with the building, or anything that we should be thinking about as far as, last year we had some issues, some surprise expenses, which fortunately were covered by insurance. Now we have another issue with, some more pipes bursting or whatever. I'm sort of wondering if there's anything we can do to be more active on preventing those sorts of things from happening. Is there anything, or was it just another surprise, accident that happened that there wasn't anything we could do to prevent it? Is there any sort of building maintenance sort of things that you can see that we could possibly be doing for the building?
Yeah, well, Sheila, that's why
She missed the beginning part where you
Missed the
talked
beginning of
about.
the, I'm in discussions with the school
Oh, you did?
department.
Oh, I'm sorry, so I missed that part, okay.
Yeah, we're looking to have a joint maintenance department with the schools.
Okay.
And they already have a full-time electrician and 3 maintenance workers, along with the maintenance the supervisor. And if we join with them, we'll get the, and help, pay for it.
Oh, good,
We'll get
okay.
their assistance, plus we'll be able to hire a full-time HVAC person who will be able to maintain all our systems on a regular basis.
Perfect,
Much
okay,
more than we do
okay.
now. And yeah, this winter's issue of freezing pipe, luckily, that too was covered by insurance. But it was an accident. The heavy winds that we were experiencing during those very, very frigid weeks. The best we can tell, a blew a window open down in the basement, and the ensuing cold air froze the pipe.
Stinks, but happens. But, okay, all right, sounds good.
Any other questions?
Mike, I had a quick question just to get me up to speed. So the audit process, and I'm not saying it's not good, but is it something that the state requires too, or is that just something we do to keep check on ourselves, or what's?
Believe it or not, I don't, it's not required by law, but we do it. The DOR certainly encourages towns to do it, and some towns have an auditor on staff, some have elected auditors. We just contract for an annual audit.
And who gets the results of that audit? I mean, does it just go to you, or does anybody can see the results?
Yeah, they're public results.
Okay.
And the auditor usually comes in at a public meeting with the selectmen and goes over the audit with the selectmen.
Okay.
We usually, we get a copy of it at some point. You usually
Yeah,
give us
you
a
give us a
copy.
copy.
Yeah,
Yeah, they give us a copy of it, and you also, we
Yeah,
can attend that meeting that they have with the.
yeah, it's usually in March. And yes, I give the budget committee, the finance committee, you get your own copy.
You can, it's
And
for the last year.
Right.
Yeah, and we put it on the website too, so everybody can take a look at it.
Anything else?
I haven't got any.
Well, I'm gonna, Mike, anything else?
No, I'm certainly good.
Well, we'll conclude this meeting. I would thank everyone that attended this morning. I would thank the Finance and Advisory Committee. Welcome again, the new member.
Thank you very much.
Mike, we appreciate all your help and guidance as always. And now I'll entertain a motion to end the meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'd second that.
Meeting is adjourned.